Like that, and let's do this one too. Perfect.
Well, I'll do an intro and it.
Okay, go right ahead.
Okay. This is the 6th day of June in 2024. I've got the privilege of sitting down to interview Duane Whitlow. He has interviewed various people from outlaws to in-laws, I think. But you don't mind that, do you? But it's a privilege, Duane, to be able to do this and sit with you and hear your life story.
Well, thanks, Sammy. I don't know if I can reduce 86 years down into a little, maybe about an hour, but I'm going to try.
Okay, well,
we'll start off when I was born, 1938, January 28th, 1938, in Lamesa, Texas. Lamesa is back then was a small town, still is a small town out in West Texas. As you well know, you and I both grew up there. And the Lamesa Golden Tornadoes were what it was called for the athletic department, was because the tornadoes in that area and the windstorms and everything would kick up the dirt, and it would make it they would be golden. They would be beautiful.
Oh yeah, with the red and gold, the brown dirt. Yeah.
Anyway, I was the only son of Joe Bailey Whitlow and Christine Creswell Whitlow. And then in 1939, 18 months after I was born, your wife, my sister Charlene, was born. And so that made up the family of the Whitlow family that Charlene and I grew up in. Daddy owned a battery and electric shop called Whitlow Battery and Electric, and he repaired batteries starting off, and then later on generators, and then later on alternators, there in Lamesa. And he established, or he built his building the same year that I was born, 1938. A lot of this you're going to know, but we'll go from there. Brings us up to World War II. One of the first things I ever remember was on actually December the 7th, 1941. Charlene and I, Mother and Daddy took Charlene and I out to Daddy's mother and Daddy's farm out on the outskirts of Lamesa, where we would have dinner every Sunday after church. And on December 7th, 1941, we were out there. And that's the first time that I ever felt stress. I'd never felt it before. It was a strange thing to me to feel, anxiety and stress. So I knew something was wrong.
Yeah.
I was 4 years old, but I asked Daddy, I said, what's wrong? And he said, we're at war. Well, I didn't have any idea what war was, but at least, he told me, what the problem was. Well, I found out very quickly what war meant. One of the worst things to me was that everything was rationed, and Mother couldn't buy sugar very often, maybe once a month, to make brownies.
I remember that.
Oh yeah. So I really did miss my brownies, Charlene and I did. But that was one of the first things that I remember about World War II. After a while, we started rationing everything. I would take my little red wagon around the neighborhood and pick up newspapers, that people had discarded. And Daddy would put them in his pickup and take them to a center, and they would be, recycled for the war effort. And I remember asking Daddy one time, well, what in the world would these newspapers be used for in the war effort? And he said that part of them would be packing between bullets and the powder, in ammunition.
Right.
I, again, didn't know what that was, but at least he explained it to me. Daddy was exempt in the war. He had the choice of either going to, be drafted or stay in La Mesa, and the draft board really wanted him to stay in La Mesa because he was the only person in that whole area that knew how to repair a battery. Now, people couldn't buy batteries because they were rationed. Well, the farmers could.
Yeah.
Because they were a part of the war effort, But just an ordinary, clerk or a person on the street could not buy a battery. Well, the only choice they had was to go to Daddy and have him repair their battery. So Daddy was vital, to not only the war effort in keeping the farmers' tractors in the fields and all of that. But he also, kept the ordinary citizen on the street, to where he could keep his car running.
Like Homeland Security, maybe, or...
Exactly. Another thing I remember about the wartime is Mother and Daddy would take Charlene and I on trips. And that's where I learned to travel, love to travel. We would go to California, we would go to Washington, Oregon, Catalina Island, Mexico, Monterrey, Mexico a couple of times. And I really, really learned at that point, the enjoyment, of travel.
Sure.
And I remember in World War II, we would cross Boulder Dam, going into Las Vegas. And we crossed it during the wartime, and it was at night, so the soldiers at the each end of the dam made us turn on the dome light in the car. Daddy had to keep his hands high on the steering wheel. Mother had to put her hands on the dashboard. Charlene and I had to put our hands on top of the back seats. And that's how we had to go across the dam. So that's another thing about how vital, that dam was back in World War II. I met my best friend along about this time, Neil Eccles. He had grown up, he was 4 months older than me, and he had grown up just down the street from me. So we went to grade school together, we went to high school together, and later on college together. And we still are very close, well, best friends even today, and that's been a real blessing.
We even go to the casinos.
We even go to the casinos together today, which that has been a real blessing. I remember in World War II there was a glider field in Lubbock, and there was an auxiliary field in La Mesa. And I remember the C-47s coming over with the gliders, pulling the gliders, and letting the gliders go, and the gliders would glide down and land, at the La Mesa glider field. And that has to be where I got my love for flying. I just adored it. A couple more things that happened. Daddy and Mother put Charlene and I on a train in La Mesa. And he drove ahead of the train and picked us up, about 25 miles down the road, I think, probably in O'Donnell or Tahoka. So we got an experience of riding on a train.
Right.
He did the same thing, putting us on an airplane. mother, Charlene, and I, all on an airplane, Pioneer Airlines, DC-3 out of La
I
Mesa.
remember that.
And he put us on the plane in La Mesa, and he drove to Midland and picked us up. So we got an experience
sure.
of flying and also, train. I remember I got my first BB gun along about this time. I got pretty good at, killing sparrows.
Well, did you have a Red Ryder?
I did, a
Okay,
red Ryder. And in fact, I've got one even today that I try to chase squirrels off of. I got a pellet gun after that, and I could not believe the accuracy and the power that the pellet gun had.
I know. It was almost like a 22.
It really was. And speaking of a 22, Daddy had a 22 pump that Mother had gotten him for Christmas at one time. And so he kind of passed down a 22 single shot that Mother had bought him whenever they got married. And so Daddy would take me out at night in the pickup to the dump ground. And he would get it, he would shine the light, excuse me, on the dump. And he would get on one fender of the pickup. I'd get on the other finger, and we would shoot rats as they darted, across in the light of the pickup lights. Well, you had to be doggone good to hit those rats.
And fast.
And fast. I mention that because that experience came in very, very handy when I joined the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
But anyway, I got pretty good at that. And Daddy, he was very, very good at that. 1956, graduated from La Mesa High School, and enrolled at Texas Tech in Lubbock. Neil enrolled in Texas Tech also, so he and I roomed together at Tech until he fell in love with a girl who was going to Baylor, so he transferred to Baylor. At the end of high school, our class, 1956 class, went to on a senior trip.
I remember that.
Yeah, I bet you do.
Yeah.
And we stopped, I guess, in Big Spring or San Angelo or wherever, and I went into a pawn shop.
Oh, I remember that.
And I bought a guitar, I think for about $25 or something.
I think we all pitched in money to get
that may have been.
Yeah, it was in San Angelo, that's where it was.
I think it was San Angelo, yeah. Anyway, we all kind of picked on this guitar all the way down there and all the way back, and Neil did it, you did it, everybody did it, and lo and behold, after a while, Neil and I started a band called the Raindrops. Well, we played for bands, dances, and concerts, and even on television for a little bit. And then along about 1959, I believe it was, we went to Norman Petty's studio in Clovis, New Mexico, and we recorded two of our original songs. They never did any good. We weren't good. But there were other people at that recording studio who made it big. Buddy Holly and the Crickets.
Yep.
The Teen Kings out of, let's see, that was, who was that? I've forgotten. But Waylon Jennings.
Waylon Jennings,
yeah. Out of Littlefield, Texas, and well, I'll think of that other guy in a minute. But anyway, some of those guys made it real big there at Clovis, New Mexico. We didn't.
Well, they did a documentary on that recently. On Norman Petty.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'd like to see that.
Yeah, maybe we can dig out where it is. I saw a promo on it.
Yeah, yeah. When Neil and I got to Lubbock, we roomed together, and then after a while, he moved back and forth between Waco and Mesa, or Lubbock, and he would get into a fight with Jan, and he would come back to Tech, and then he would miss Jan and go back to Baylor.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And he finally graduated from Baylor. I graduated in 1960 with a business degree from Texas Tech, and was hired by J.C. Penney in Beaumont, Texas, of all places. And so I went to Beaumont, but only for a very, very short time, because back then, as you well know, if you were not in school and if you were single, you were going to get drafted.
Yep.
Well, Mother kept up with where I was in the draft age, so she warned me whenever I got up to the top of the list. So what I did there in Beaumont was go right down to the Marine Corps recruit office and signed up for 6 years in the Marine Corps Reserve. I had it in my mind at that point that I wanted to get out and I wanted to get into business. I remember a situation happening there at J.C. Penney of a woman coming in one time, and she was talking to the assistant manager, and I was, sitting there listening to it. She was the wife of a man who owned a construction company there in Beaumont. And he asked where he would, her husband was at, and she said, well, he's in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean right now. He flew over there, bought a sailboat, and he's sailing it back, to here. And I got to thinking about that, and I said, I'm never going to be able to achieve something like that by being employed at J.C. Penney. There's no way. So I knew that I wanted to get into business I thought I wanted to get into business for myself, somehow, some way. So that's why I did not sign up for the regular Marines. I signed up for the reserves so I would have time, to be able to get into business for myself.
Well, that worked well, too.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, Marine Corps, if you were west of the Mississippi River, which we were in Texas, of course, you would go to boot camp at San Diego. However, they were full at that time whenever I was supposed to go, so I ended up at Parris Island, South Carolina, on the other side of the country. And so I spent 3 months at Parris Island, and lo and behold, I was in that platoon with a whole lot of people from New York and Boston and Atlanta and all of that, and I was the only Texan, absolutely the only one in there. So I was really kind of an anomaly.
Right.
But I knew how to shoot. So on the rifle range, I fired the highest score in our platoon. So that got me out of spending a week on mess duty with the rest of the platoon,
Yeah.
and went to the rifle range, with the pistol training. And so that got me my stripe, my PFC stripe, after we got through at Parris Island. Then we went to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, for advanced infantry training, and I spent 3 months there at Camp Lejeune. Then I came on back. Well, I was very impressed, enamored, whatever, with the Marine Corps. I really, really wanted to join the Marine Corps and fly. So I approached Daddy and mother, and I told him, I said, I'm going to join the regular Marines. Well, of course, Daddy knew exactly what to do. He said, I'll help you get into business, here in West Texas if you want to just stay here. Well, I did want to get into business. So I decided, okay, I'll just do that. So I did not go with my desire of flying in the Marine Corps. Maybe it was right. Maybe I would have died in flight. I don't know. It's possible. But Daddy helped me get into business, and I put in Duane Whitlow Battery and Electric out in Welch, Texas, at that point. And about that time, I met a girl, Kay Campbell, who was going to Texas Tech, and we started dating, and we finally got married. That was my first marriage. And out of that marriage, I got two wonderful kids, Kanan Carol Whitlow, my daughter, and Kevin Duane Whitlow, my son. And so that marriage produced two very, very wonderful children for me. I remember sitting out in front of the shop waiting on business there and watching the airplanes go by, from Dallas going to California or whatever. And I thought, man, the world is passing me by, and it was.
Oh, I totally understand.
It was passing me by. So finally, I saw that Texas Instruments in Dallas was wanting, manager trainees or whatever they called them. So I applied and I was accepted. And so I sold my building there in Welch to the city. And I think Daddy probably bought all of my equipment and everything and stock. And Kay and I moved to Dallas. And I'm going to take a break right here.
Okay.
What do you think, Sammy?
I think that's good. Yeah, I think you're doing really good here. I think your stories are good. I'm not talking much, but I'm listening. I'm enjoying your story.
So Kay and I moved to Dallas. I joined Texas Instruments as a line supervisor, and then later on went to a division at TI called Tyco. I failed to mention the year and date that Kanan was born. That was on October the 5th in 1963. She was actually born in La Mesa.
Yeah.
And then Kevin, he was born in 1965.
Okay.
So they were about 2 years apart.
Well, he was born in La Mesa too, wasn't he? But I think
Yes.
he was a baby when y'all moved.
Yeah. So we moved in about 65. That's right. I think it's important right now for me to. I don't know. A lot of people won't like this, but I remember back in about 19. Well, we were in the First Baptist Church in La Mesa, Texas, and we were in Sunday school, every Sunday. And my subjects in that I enjoyed the most in high school was history and geography. I enjoyed both of them, and we were learning a lot about the world, about our universe, where we're at. We're individuals. We started with the Ice Age, and all of that, and then came on up and everything. But I was hearing, a kind of a different story, in Sunday school, and it was confusing. In Sunday school, we were being told by our teacher that we were very, very lucky that we were born in the time that we were born, and that we were members of the First Baptist Church in La Mesa, because we had the choice of either accepting Jesus Christ as our Savior, and therefore we're going to heaven, or in not doing that, or we were going to burn in hell for the rest of our lives. Well, that was confusing. I did not believe that a God, would allow something like that to happen, and especially, what about the people millions and millions of people that were born and died, prior to Jesus Christ ever being born? Well, I was told, that they're burning in hell. Well, that raised a lot of red flags, to me, about religion, back in those days. Another thing that happened is there was a real cute little girl in school named Mary Lee. And we would kind of hold hands, every once in a while, and I would see her in between classes in school. So I went to her house one time, knocked on her door. Her daddy came to the door, and he looked down at me and he said, "Mary Lee cannot see you." And I was kind of taken back. I said, "Why?" He said, "Because you're going to hell. You're a member of the First Baptist Church. You're not a member of the First Christian Church, so therefore you are going to hell."
A little bold.
And shut the door on me. And so again, that told me that not only is, their competition, that there is competition, between churches, even in the Protestant churches. And so anyway, it got me to wondering, well, what's going on? Well, over these years, I've come to the not a conclusion. It's not a conclusion. It's a position, I guess, that we as human beings, have only been on this earth a very, very, very short period of time. Even though it's been, years and years and years and years, it's still nothing. Maybe 1,000 years from now, we might understand more about what God is or what a supreme being is, but right now we don't have the knowledge, we don't have the experience, we don't know, what the vastness of God is. So is there an afterlife? I don't know. Is there a heaven and hell? I doubt it. But and do we have consciousness after death? I don't know. I guess we'll all find out. We have no idea.
We don't know.
We don't know. But maybe
we cross that line. So.
Yeah, maybe 1,000 years from now, if human beings, exist, we might blow ourselves up. I don't know. We're pretty capable of doing that.
Absolutely.
Maybe we'll know a whole lot more about what this universe is all about, because we're a tiny, tiny, tiny speck, in a vast universe of thousands of galaxies, and we're just a teeny thing. So one of these days, maybe we'll get the experience. Maybe we'll find out. I don't know, but I'll be gone. So I'd love to know, but I won't know. On the other hand, I remember being very proud of my church once. Kathy and I were in El Salvador back in the 80s at a very dark time. Death squads were roaming the streets, killing so-called enemies of the government. We were deep in the mountains, up near the border with Honduras and Guatemala, visiting families which had been pushed back and forth across each border by the armies of those countries. No country wanted these people. Most of them lived in tents. The lucky ones had corrugated tin roofs. We walked by a pile of these tin panels, and lo and behold, stenciled on each was Lutheran World Relief. I was never so proud of my church. I suddenly realized that my church was actually doing something very good with my money. I could afford that 10, of course, but certainly couldn't get it to these people. Only my church could. Incidentally, ever so often these countries would bomb these people. We saw the bombs. They were made in Arizona and given to these countries by our government. I was never more ashamed of our government. My first marriage with Kay ended in a divorce. I had joined in Texas Instruments. I had joined Tyco and was a salesman. And I was, I would leave on Monday and come back on Friday. It was kind of a trying time, in our marriage. We had other problems too, but we decided, that we would part.
Well, about that time, wasn't it, when you started flying? You still got this love for flying, and if I remember,
Thank you for reminding me. Yes, Texas Instruments had a flying club, and they had airplanes, and I joined the club and I learned to fly, and so that was how I was able to get my.
Well, I remember when you took Charlene and I on a flight one time just around the city of Dallas, out of Addison, and I believe it was in one of Texas Instruments planes.
It probably was. That's the only thing I could afford.
Yeah, that was in about 1968.
I had forgotten about that.
Yeah.
Sure had.
Yeah, I remember that.
Well, anyway, after I was divorced and everything, I kind of fell, I can't say fell in love, but I fell for a girl up in Canada, Sandra Skoblack. She was a really, really pretty girl, still is a very pretty woman. But that was my second marriage. And that produced I brought her back to Texas. We had a daughter named Lynn Lacey, and she was born on 3/6 of 72.
Yeah.
And about that time also at Texas Instruments, Tyco was going out of business at Texas Instruments. So we were given the opportunity, all the employees of Tyco, to either get another job at Texas Instruments or, we were going to be laid off.
Mm-hmm.
So I went outside of TI. I got a job at Data Processing Associates, DPA. And I stayed there for, probably 6 or 8 years, and I learned the data processing, computer sales, not sales, but rental. Then they established another division called PCM, Pioneer Computer Marketing, and I was asked to join them, and that was computer sales instead of rental. And so I joined them, and then I learned how to buy and sell computers.
I remember, yeah. that was good for you.
Yeah, it sure was. And along 2 or 3 years into that, PCM had made kind of some bad decisions, and they were kind of losing some money. Sandra and I were deeply in debt at that point. We were struggling, financially. Mm-hmm. And we were getting close to a separation over that matter. And eventually it did result in a separation and a divorce. So she and Lacey moved out. I was deeply in debt, and PCM cut the salaries of all of the employees, including me. Well, I couldn't make it. There wasn't any way I could make it, on the salary I was making.
Right.
So I quit, gave my 2-week notice, and went into business for myself. Duane Whitlow and Company Incorporated. And I knew I knew that if I could make a certain amount of money, I could make it. And the first month I think triple that profit wise. So I was off and running.
Yeah.
Also started getting business from my former retail customers at PCM. One of them was a company in California, California Cotton Growers Association.
Wow.
In Bakersfield. And lo and behold, they gave me an order for about, $75,000 worth of retail gear. Well, I was doing very well at that point. I went to my bank in Irving. I said, look, here's a contract,
Yeah.
75,000. All I needed to buy is 60,000, borrow 60,000, and I can make, 15. Well, they wouldn't do it. And so what in the world is going on?
Yeah.
I realized very quickly that banks, needed a whole lot more than just a contract.
Right.
So I went to a friend of mine in New York, a dealer that I was dealing with, Joe Alfano was his name. Anyway, I told him the situation. I told him I'll split the profit with you. He said, give me your wire transfer information. So that's how I funded most of my early retail transactions.
Right.
And after Sandra and I were separated and divorced and everything, I used Daddy a few times for funding, and that worked out real well.
Well, I remember that. That was a good situation.
It was very, very good situation. Along about that time, you joined me.
Yeah, I did. That's a whole nother story.
It is. But there was something going on with the 360 equipment at that point that not a whole lot of people knew, that there was a lot of gold.
Oh, I know it.
In those machines.
I know.
Every pin was gold plated in those machines.
Oh.
And we had quite a few of them in stock.
Yeah.
Well, you and I flew in my plane to Arizona, and we learned how to extract that gold.
Yeah.
And the
Fred
Fennell in Arizona taught us, and he supplied us with the equipment to be able to extract that gold, from those pins, on those computers.
To reverse the plating on it.
Yeah, right. It was so interesting to put those parts down in that liquid at night, and you would get up the next morning and go in and find them clean of gold, and all of that gold was put on the plates that were in that liquid. It was fascinating.
You go scrape it off with a razor blade scraper.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa.
Oh, it was profitable. Very, very profitable, and very exciting. Anyway, after a while, you wanted to go into business for yourself, so you established Computer Recovery.
Right.
And you were traveling from Alvarado, I think, to Irving every day. So you established Computer Recovery in Alvarado, and that prevented you from having to drive to Irving every day.
Right, yeah.
So that worked out real well. Whenever I went into business for myself, I became to where I was able to afford my first airplane.
Yeah.
So I went down to Chaparral Aviation in Addison, Texas, and I bought a brand new 1979 A36 Bonanza 2031 Bravo. It became a very, very important part of my life. This airplane resulted again, too, in a few months later buying a piece of property in Ruidoso, New Mexico, a little modified A-frame, and that again was a very, very important purchase in my life. And at Chaparral Aviation, there was a cute little girl there.
I remember.
Yeah, she was beautiful, and her name was Kathleen Fisher. She was going through a divorce. And after she divorced, we started seeing each other, and eventually, about a year later, we married. That would have been in 1981, and we combined families. Kevin was living with me. Kate Ann had moved in with her mother, mainly because I couldn't fix her hair.
Well, that's very important.
That was very important. So she moved in with her mother, and Kevin and I, in those early days before Kathy and I got married, we would make model airplanes. We would put together radio-controlled model airplanes.
Oh, I remember. There was some beautiful stuff that y'all did.
We would put them together during the week. Every night we would work on these airplanes, Kevin and I. Then on the weekend we would go fly and crash them. Learning how to fly radio-controlled model airplanes. And then we would come back and put them all back together, glue them all back, and take them back out the next weekend and either crash it again or buy a new model, and put it together.
I remember.
Eventually, we both learned how to fly radio-controlled model airplanes. Kevin still does that to this day.
Oh, I know.
In fact, he has become extremely proficient at it. And he flies nothing but pure jets now. And
I know. We saw one of his one time that he flew. It was incredible, you know.
Kathy and I started doing a lot of traveling. We went to the Holy Lands 2 or 3 times. We went to Central America 2 or 3 times. She and my daughter, Kate Ann, went to China one time. Kathy, also with my daughter, Kate Ann, went to Scotland 2 or 3 times. And we went on 4 or 5 or 6 cruises. In fact, you and Charlene went with us, on many of those cruises. And all of that started back, when Mother and Daddy would take Charlene and I on trips. We just thoroughly enjoyed.
I know. You and Charlene reminisced about that a lot.
A lot. So. Sure did.
And the fun that you had.
Yeah. But Kathy and I figured out one time we'd been to about 32 countries.
Wow. So
we have had a lot of travel, 10 or so or cruises, and the marriage with Kathy at this point is 43 years, and it's been wonderful.
Wow.
Been a real
Congratulations.
blessing.
Your anniversary's coming up too.
Coming up. It's coming up next month, and we're going to go on a cruise.
Good for you.
So we're looking forward to that. My dad passed away January 15th, 1994. He was 85 years old. I'm at 86 right now, so I'm a little bit past where he passed away. Along about that time, I was in the CDLA, Computer Dealers and Lessors Association. I became president of that, and then later on chairman of the board. And I was with Ken Bolden one time on sharing a cab in Washington D.C., and he had a uniform in a carry bag, and it was an Army uniform, and it had colonels, epaulets. I said, "Ken, are you a colonel?" He said, "Oh yeah, yeah." Well, he ended up being a major general.
Wow.
And anyway, I bring this up because he and I were reminiscing one time about what we wished we had done, in life. And I told him that I really, thinking again about the Marine Corps, wish that I had have been able to fly off of be trapped on board an aircraft carrier and catapulted off.
Yeah.
And Ken said, "I think I'm supposed to do that in a few months. Let me check that out." Lo and behold, he was a general on the Reserve Officers Board.
Right.
And any of these other generals and admirals were supposed to go on board USS Nimitz out in the Pacific for a couple of days to watch a reserve, Navy Reserve squadron, do touch and goes, on the USS Nimitz. So anyway, he got me on board. And I flew out to California, and we were put on the COD, which is the Carrier Onboard Delivery Aircraft, and in San Diego, North Island, and we flew out to the Nimitz. We were trapped on board. We spent 36 hours on the Nimitz.
Wow.
And then we were catapulted off, after that. It was a rare, wonderful experience.
Well, that's something that's you can't buy experiences like that.
No, you can't. And that started another love of mine. I had a lot of still pictures on board the Nimitz that I wanted to put them together, in a video of some kind. I didn't know how to do that. This was before computers. We didn't have video editing machines on computers at that time. So I got a hold of a guy there in Plano, where we lived, who could do that. So he put all of those pictures together into a video. And make a long story short, I've got 75 videos now.
Wow.
That I have done that are all on my website, on YouTube website, Duane Whitlow. So if anybody's interested, well, they're all there.
Oh, and the interview you did with me is out there too, and I thought that was a wonderful experience.
Yeah, and all that started, from the USS Nimitz.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
During that time, of course, I was aging. I've had both my knees replaced. I'm a cancer survivor. I've had 10 or 12 trips to Las Vegas with, where I met Neil, my best friend. We have stayed very, very close all these years, and that's a true blessing. In fact, on one of those trips, Love Field, I fainted. I was in the line to go through ATC or whatever, to get checked in. I fainted, and I was out for probably 10, 15 minutes because whenever I woke up, I was on a gurney being put into an ambulance.
Oh.
And I asked those guys, I said, "Where are you taking me?" They said to Parkland Hospital. I had fainted. And I said, "Well, I'm supposed to be in Las Vegas."
All right, I gotta go.
So anyway, as soon as we got to the hospital, the paramedics there said, "Well, he was supposed to be in Las Vegas,"
Right.
Then all the nurses and everything, and doctors knew where I was supposed to be. Anyway, they took very, very good care of me.
Oh, I remember you were very lucky to not have permanent damage.
I remember right before I fainted, I felt a little nauseous,
Mm-hmm.
and then I felt this darkness coming over the back of my neck and over the top of my head, kind of just
Wow.
coming over me like that, and then I was out.
Wow.
And I had a black eye. My cheek had a hole in it from my teeth falling on my teeth. So it was pretty bad.
Really?
But I have always thought back on that. That's other than waking up, that's probably the closest I will ever feel to death. Because if I didn't wake up,
Oh, yeah. I mean,
well, that would be it.
you were in the darkness, so.
Yeah. So anyway, brings us to 2023. Last year, your wife,
Yeah.
my sister, we lost her
Yeah.
to super nuclear palsy.
Nuclear
Nuclear
progressive palsy.
palsy. And that was a very, very bad shock for both of us.
Yeah.
Because I never felt like I would, live longer than Charlie. I never felt that.
Well, she, was in excellent health, exercised, and
She did everything right, and I did everything wrong. So, I don't know what happened.
It's the same way with me. She did every exercise and everything while I watched her.
Well, who knows what's going to happen.
That's true.
Anyway, that brings us to now. Like I said before, Kathy and I's 43rd anniversary is coming up next month, and we're going to be on a cruise. And so looking forward to that. I have told everybody, and I'll say it again, what my final requests are. I will be cremated. A quarter of my ashes will be spread on yours and Charlene's grave site. A quarter to be spread on Mother and Daddy's grave site, which is just right there beside, very much close to your grave site. Another quarter of them to be spread over Neil's gravesite in Lubbock.
Wow.
And another quarter to be given to Kathy to be mixed with her ashes and to be spread wherever she wants. So that puts my body, at least with everybody that has meant, so much to me through this life. And I hope I will have a few more years to live. Who knows?
Well,
I have no idea.
It's not in our control.
No, it's not in our control. But I'm looking forward to it, whatever it happens.
Well, and every day, Micah, what I do, and it's just my advice, is I try to do something different every day, or try to be constructive, or to, I guess.
Well, I have watched you closely since Charlene has passed away, and you have done marvelously, getting involved in the leather works and your little shop and your website and all that. I've been in awe of how well you've done, and it's been an inspiration to me.
Thank
sure,
you.
yeah. I hope I can do as well as you if the same thing happens to me.
I know.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of, I know what Charlene would say,
Yeah.
and you do too.
Oh, yeah.
She'd tell you the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
Get busy.
Get on with it.
Get on with it. So,
I never will forget Daddy telling all of us, whenever you want to buy something, we'll get the price and then double it, and it'll be just about right.
That's exactly, and that has been so true.
That's been so true all my life.
Yeah, and Charlene has always been, I always say, well, this ought to cost so much, and she said, just double it.
Double it, and it'll be just about right.
Yeah.
And then also, Daddy's, almost at the end of his life, he looked at me and he said, Wayne, if you want to do something, you better do it now.
Well, that's true too, you know. And fortunately, like Charlie and I, after we retired, we traveled with cruising, you know, and
Yeah.
you guys were part of that.
You bet.
And
Well, I've been very happy, with my life. Being with you, with Neil, with Kathy, with my children has all been a blessing. It really has.
we are blessed. We're truly blessed. And I know we lost Charlene, but I know where she is, you know, and we're blessed. Every day when we get up, you just have to think it's a blessed day.
So that was my life.
And a very interesting life, Dwayne. And thank you for choosing me to do your interview, because
I wouldn't have done it with anybody else.
it's a pleasure, because when you did mine, you know, you share everything that you ever knew, you know. So suddenly there's no secrets anymore,
Oh.
you know. So
No, they're not. But man, what a beautiful home you have.